Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this webinar on the right IT infrastructure to accelerate your digital transformation. This is Anil Chopra, and today we're going to have two sessions, one by myself and the other by Dharni Balan Gurunathan, who is the Director Cloud Technical Sales and Solutioning APAC at IBM. So we're going to do, I'm going to speak for about 15 minutes to talk about the importance of having an agile infrastructure in digital transformation, followed by Dharni's presentation, and then we will do a Q&A after that. And during the course of our presentations, I request you to send us any questions that you have by chat so that we can take them up towards the end during the Q&A. So with that, I'll start off with my presentation, which is on the importance of having an agile infrastructure in digital transformation. Now, I think it's important to understand where the need for this agile infrastructure is really coming from, because it really will become more apparent if you look at it from the perspective of how, the consumer behavior is actually changing today, okay? These consumers are both your customers as well as your employees, and they make it very important, it's very important that you understand them better and then align your infrastructure. And that will become more clear as I move to the next slide, which I'm sure many of you will really agree with me. See, today if you look at consumer IT or the home IT, the kind of technologies that we're using at home have become far more powerful than what they used to, as compared to, say, what you get in the corporate IT world. There is, this is one big difference that we see today, which was not really there earlier. Today, for example, I think, all of us have far more bandwidth at home. 16 Mbps broadband at home is so commonplace, that we can use it to do a lot of things, whether to watch movies, whether to, use social media, whether to connect multiple devices over Wi-Fi at home. So, there is a lot more bandwidth at our disposal at home. Likewise, if we are on the move, then again, there are so many connectivity options available for consumers, whether it's 3G, whether it's 4G, or even the various public hotspots that are, getting set up everywhere. So far more connectivity options allow us to, remain connected and have ubiquitous connectivity everywhere. Our systems are far more powerful than what they used to be. A smartphone today can do so many more things that you were otherwise, constrained to do in the past. It's very interesting because you can use a smartphone to do video editing, to do photo editing, and to do chat and do a lot of content creation work, which was just not possible without a powerful desktop in the past. And likewise for, so many other devices that are, again, equally powerful, whether it's laptops or tablets. So again, there's a lot more, power in the hands of the consumer today than what was available yesterday. And not only that, besides the hardware, the software world, of course, has kept up along with this, and by providing the necessary apps required to be able to leverage all that power of the devices that are there in hand. Something that, all of this, I think, was considered as a luxury in the past, and it was only available to office users. Well, not anymore, because, things are far more very different from what they were in the past, which obviously, bring me to the next slide where, that it's only natural that consumers will expect far more from corporate IT, whether they're your employees or your customers. Their expectations will change because that's the kind of technology that they experience, outside, in everyday life. So they want that seamless experience no matter, how they connect with you as a company, right? Your customers will expect seamless experience no matter whether they're connecting with you over the phone, whether they're connecting on a mobile, on a website, or even whether it's a personal visit. They'll expect the same kind of experience no matter where they are. They'll expect you to remember their profiles, know their profile, know their background history, and everything about them, and should not have to explain the everything over and over again if they have a query, whether it's after sales query or a sales call query, whatever it is. They'll expect seamless experience no matter where they are. And like I said, same consumers are also your employees, and they will expect to be, connected from anywhere and from any device, and should be, will expect to work from anywhere as well. So that's another very, very stark difference, a changing expectation that consumers have today, okay? They expect the technology to be as easy to use as the app on their device. Apps have become so easy to use, you can do so many things with them, that they will expect the same thing, same kind of thing from corporate IT as well. So that's why, I think it's important for, IT also, has to change the role that from what it was doing earlier. It's no longer just traditional IT that was used to drive operational efficiency in the organization and, act as a business enabler. It is no longer just that. It's not just something to keep the lights on in the data center. Okay, your IT has to be able to, handle this new consumer. So the role really, really, really has to change. Okay, so a lot of companies are today serious about digital transformation, and the challenge might be with the IT, which is whether it's capable to deliver it or not. Okay, and so I think there needs to be a change in both the kind of legacy technologies, because consumers are far more quicker, they are more agile, they are using technologies day in and day out. They'll expect the same response time as they get on the apps that they use by your technology as well. So both legacy technologies and the mindset, both things have to change if you are really serious about digital transformation. Okay, so because legacy systems will become a bottleneck, because ultimately, if you do want to be able to support the consumers, your customers, your infrastructure has to be more agile, and it has to be able to support, because you will need new age software as well to be able to support the consumers. Okay, so legacy does become a bottleneck in such a situation. Okay, and that's where the role of IT, has to change. You have to understand that it's no longer about just keeping the lights on or to use IT as a business enabler. It has to be at the core of your business. Okay, it has to be able to fundamentally disrupt the business. If you want to change your business models, you need IT support. If you want to bring out a differentiation, make your company different, and you want the agility to roll out, such innovative business models, whatever you have thought of, you need to upgrade. You need the right technology that is responsive enough, that is automated, that can give you the flexibility required, that will allow you to create applications and services without having to reinvent the wheel every time or re-architect every time that you want to have any kind of change. Because consumers are changing, you want to cater to their requirements, your IT also has to be flexible enough to be able to support it. For instance, for those of you who are in seasonal business, which sees spikes, a hybrid infrastructure that can actually burst into the cloud when their demand has peaked and can shrink back when the demand is gone is really, really required. And I think many e-commerce companies already leverage that kind of an infrastructure, where they pay for the infrastructure in the cloud when there's a demand, and then they don't have to pay, they can actually shrink back when they don't really need that much infrastructure. That is the kind of agility that I'm really, really talking about. So I think, this choice of now finally comes, choice of technology. Now, choice of technology, comes in, and what you use when you really, after you've understood this kind of consumer behavior, and you've understood that this is how your IT infrastructure needs to behave for, to cater to the consumer needs. So after that is when you actually choose, and here are some technologies. I mean, this is obviously not a comprehensive list, but these are some technologies that we talk of today, which you should be considering when you're trying to make your infrastructure more agile. Flash, for example, given the number of IoT devices that are coming in, given the amount of traffic that is there on social media, the kind of data that is coming in, you want to be able to respond and react to that data in real time. And for that, you cannot have storage as a bottleneck, where the traditional spindle speed based storage will not be able to respond fast enough. So you need to reduce that latency, which is where flash storage really comes in. Hyper-converged infrastructure, another term I think I'm sure most of you would have heard of, is where you can actually have more compute, storage, and networking power in lesser area, which is more responsive, which can actually help you load the applications and services on the infrastructure when you require without really having to go through a long procurement cycle for the hardware, for the necessary hardware to run it. So that's where hyperconverged really comes in. I think as you will need a cloud strategy, you will need to utilize the cloud so that you can offer your services anytime, anywhere, or be connected and available anytime, anywhere. You do need to follow a multi-cloud strategy. That's something that is being talked about nowadays, so that you can minimize your risk of any kind of data loss or any kind of downtime. You want to minimize that, okay? Because obviously consumers would not expect any downtime in today's digital world. Now, platforms is another very interesting area of technology, because every company has so many different enterprise applications, your ERPs, your CRM, etc. There are so many technologies that are there. You need to be able to extract data from those and present what's required to the customer. Okay. Now, you obviously cannot expose your enterprise apps directly to the consumer, or you cannot expose it directly to any of your partners. Suppose you are working with a partner, which is where platforms come in and, kind of sit between your consumers and partners and your enterprise apps. They provide the necessary APIs to be able to extract the data that is required from various enterprise apps. So they become a necessity today to be able to quickly innovate and offer services to the customers. And likewise, of course, you don't want network to be the bottleneck when it comes to, responding to your customers. Because of course the traffic on the network has gone up after all these apps and mobile devices that have come on the network. So you need to be able to rethink your network design and management strategies and see that it's able to respond back quickly enough and that there are no bottlenecks because of the network. So I think these are some infra technologies that matter. Of course, there'll be many more, but this is just a partial list. I felt that important. But the key thing over here to remember is that you need to understand it from the point of view of the consumer and how the behavior of the consumer is changing, how the consumption of technology of the consumer is changing, in order to choose the technology that is required and in order to upgrade the infrastructure that you need to. It has to be based on what is the requirement out there, how the consumer is behaving, how your customer is changing. It will be easier to select the technologies once you have understood that. So lastly, I think, just to give a few takeaways, I think you need infrastructure to differentiate yourself because, technology can no longer be just a business enabler. It has to be at the core, and you have to continuously use it, okay? And you have to, come out with new ideas that nobody else has thought of, which is where technology really helps you. Flexibility in IT infrastructure is a must. If there is a change that is required by a consumer, you don't want your IT infrastructure to be the bottleneck and not able to respond. So flexibility in the IT infrastructure is a must. But of course, if you are changing so rapidly, it's extremely important to define your processes, follow them, stringently, because many times what happens is that a consumer might access your site, he might access a particular service, okay, but later, finally finds out that, suppose he's buying something from your site and he sees a great discount available, he places the order, but immediately after placing the order gets a message that the product is out of stock. Till that time, there was no such message. So that is just a simple example, but which is where processes come in. You need to have your processes defined properly, and they have to be followed if you really want to manage an agile infrastructure properly. Okay, which is where again compliance standards also come in. It's important to have the right compliance, okay, because you are dealing with sensitive customer information. For those of you who are actually dealing front-ending and selling services online, so credit card data, etc., becomes extremely important. So you need to have the right standards in place to be able to secure your customers' data. Interfaces, UI, UX, they have to be easy to use. and when going digital, because you're dealing with customers that you probably never met, and user experience has become important for everybody, after these e-commerce sites have actually taught everyone, because consumers use that as the benchmark for ease of use in whatever applications that they use. So you need to make sure that you focus on that. The other is that, you need to work out ways to build customer loyalty. That's a very difficult thing to do. So you need to be able to work on things, you need to be able to respond to them, and be able to build that loyalty, because any feedback that you get from customers, if it is not taken seriously and reacted on, customer may not come back to you. So I think feedback is important. Customer feedback is important because they may never come back to you. And lastly, of course, you need analytics to be able to continuously keep studying consumer behavior and reacting accordingly. So I think besides having the right IT infrastructure, you need to follow some of these rules if you really, really want to transform yourself, if you want to really digitally transform yourself in today's digital world. So thanks a lot. With that, I end my presentation. But before I hand over the presentation to Dharni, I'd request the host to run a quick poll. So can I request the host to please show the poll questions right now? Great. So here we have the questions. What is the core application that you're using? Is it SAP or is it a non-SAP enterprise application that you're using? And the second question is, what is the approach that you're primarily following for your enterprise application? Is it cloud, is it on-premise, or are you using a mix of the two? So I'll give you about 30 seconds to answer this. And I would request the host to display the results once the poll is over, once the time is up.
Sure, sir.
Okay, if the time is up, then can we please have the results?
Sure, sir. We're just calculating the results. The results would be up in any moment.
Thanks.
We have the results.
Okay, so here are the results, and I'd like to now hand it over to Dharni to take up his session, which is around digital transformation and agile infrastructure. So Dharni, over to you.
Hey, thank you, Anil. That was a real nice presentation you did, and you actually set the tone absolutely perfect for the webinar to roll ahead. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
I would touch up. Thank you. Yeah, so I would touch upon digital transformation, and when I really talk about digital transformation, broadly what all are the 3 or 4 elements that essentially in an enterprise context needs to be covered. One big element is really the huge influx of data, massive influx of data. And the way we've kind of been talking in IBM, we see data as the next, natural resource that, just like, petroleum coal or whatever, right? So the next natural resource to tap and to make significant monetization out of is data. And therefore, given the volume, the velocity, the type, the nature of data, big data is something which is huge and is about data everywhere, right? So that's something which is very critical. The next element I would want to jump into is how do you start adding insights into data, and that's not easy, right? Especially how do you drive intelligence and drive intelligent insights out of these data. So that is the cognitive element of digitization. Data in itself is probably something which we keep producing. Every day, I guess, several, million and petabytes and terabytes of petabytes of data, actually exabytes of data we produce on an everyday basis from various sources, connected devices, IoT devices, IT systems, whatever, right? But actually drawing meaningful insight out of that data is actually going to help you monetize it. So that's the second aspect. The third aspect is data is getting produced from various sources, right? Some of them are produced through systems that are on-premises, whereas some of them are produced through systems which are around you, right? Which kind of surround you on an everyday basis. Correct. And that's why there is this element and need of having to integrate the external world with the data that you produce in your enterprises. So that's where the element or aspects of API comes into picture, right? Which allows you to operate in a truly hybrid model on what is existing and running on premises and what is running on the cloud. And to support this whole, you need a complete agile infrastructure to support the data and the application. You need an agile infrastructure, and that is essentially provided by cloud, right? And IBM provides a cloud that is secure and ready for enterprise business, right? This is primarily what I talk about digital transformation in terms of the elements that really go ahead and change the IT paradigm as far as digital transformation is concerned. Now, if I were to then come back and start looking at, no element of transformation is meaningful or will accept or will gather support unless there is a business paradigm to it, correct? And therefore it's important and critical to understand what does digital transformation mean to you from a business standpoint. And I've touched upon some very basic elements here, and there could be more as well, right? Because every day we are discovering as people newer methods or newer areas of our life that digital is really touching us. The first aspect is largely about operations and processes. The second one is largely about how do you deliver a significantly higher valued customer experience. And the third one is about how do you help develop new business models, right? These are largely three aspects of digital transformation and how they affect us from a business context perspective. And if you're able to bring that aspect out, it becomes easier for you all to adopt and also, have a conversation with business in a sustained manner, right? And seek support for it. So if I look at what operation processes, how does digital transformation essentially, affect business is almost all businesses have started to realize the value of digital transformation, right? In terms of how process automation can be introduced, how workforce can be provided mobility of choice to work from, right, rather than having to incur the cost of transporting workforce and skilled workforce. And third most important element is primarily the supply chain efficiency. Sorry, somebody wanted to say something? All right, no problem. So one element, right? So one element that is very important is, and this is if you are from the IT organization, IT side of the organization, it's not new. There is a constant squeeze to see how to get how to deliver IT and IT-related services better, right? And at a reducing budget on a continued basis. Whereas there is ability to invest, however, on driving better customer experience, primarily because the approach is to enable and attract more and more customers to the services and the products that are delivered by each of those enterprises, right? So there is this aspect of operations being, made better. How can you kind of make it more, agile, and at the same time, how do you deliver better quality to the customer, to the end user rather, and your customers, and that's essentially about the operation processes transformation. I'll touch upon one such element and in a couple of slides that follow, right? So what does IBM help, and how can IBM help in this whole journey is we've developed what is called a one architecture, right? The one architecture essentially is something which is provided by IBM, which creates and delivers a single cloud platform, right? And on the cloud platform, it enables data to be brought together, data that exists within the enterprise and data that is existing outside the enterprise. So come to think about it, it could be data that is being produced behind your enterprise firewalls, on the systems of record that you keep kind of creating, which is also commonly referred to as cloud-enabled workload, right? And there is data that is sitting outside, which is really about what users are really talking about you, right? What users are talking about your product, what people are telling you about how do they look up to you as a service providing company, as a product providing company, what's their likes, what's their dislikes, and therefore allows you to keep enhancing and enriching the products that you make. It could be Twitter feed, it could be Facebook feeds, almost all, it could be your users coming and using your online portals, which essentially provide a digital facade and a front end to you, right? So that's the external data. What we provide on the cloud are all the tools and the capabilities which allows you to crawl the external world, gather data about you. It allows you to store data that you produce in your enterprises as part of your enterprise IT, and that data belongs to you. That data is not used by our systems in any manner to learn about you or to enrich features and functionality, right? Unlike most other data providers or most other large, cognitive insights providers, most of them collect data about you and use the data in some manner to kind of start developing add-on products. So that's something which we do not do. So that's a differentiator which we offer. We allow you to cleanse this data, enrich this data, and feed it to the next layer, which is largely the augmented intelligence layer, which is completely supported by a huge number of products from our Watson family. Some of them are available directly as products, which have an industry use case in the form of applications above. And some of them are primarily available for new age and modern age applications to enhance its capabilities through what is called cognitive APIs, which is what you see in the layer which says AI, right, which are primarily the building blocks for delivering cognitive insights into the data that you have essentially collected. And finally, there are industry verticals, right? Like life sciences has a Watson Oncology, which is focused on healthcare, which is focused on oncology treatment, right? Then we have Watson Cybersecurity, which allows you to actually consume all these cloud services and at the same time make sure that your on-premises infrastructure is also, which is connected now through APIs or otherwise through extended networks to keep them secure. So that's the Watson Cybersecurity. Weather Channel is something that you probably do not realize. It's an IBM service, which you will probably see in almost all your Android or Apple iOS phones, right? So that's something, that's the weather company, data which provides. Now, there are new use cases around weather, which is used in the enterprise segment, where we will talk about it subsequently. Blockchain is another new use case which is becoming more and more important. As I said, it's important to have security. At the same time, as you start getting digital, you need to have a method to make sure that you are making yourself cyber secure, and at the same time you are making yourself, you are interacting with partners who you can interact with great amount of trust. And that is something which Watson enables through Hyperledger. We'll talk about specific use case around this a little while later. Watson Virtual Agent, Watson Explorer, and Discoverers, asset management, risk and compliance are various add-on use cases which have specific industry, finished product capabilities. Watson Virtual Agents primarily can be used in predominantly in the BPO segments where, a lot of your first level 1 calls are essentially taken up by Watson Virtual Agent, which can respond to customers in a very meaningful manner. And Watson Virtual Agent essentially is powered by the ability to do voice recognition. It has ability to have conversation in it. It has ability to detect tonal quality. So it does tone analysis. It has ability to handle natural language understanding. And at the same time, if a personality is identifiable on the other side of the call, it can also deliver personality insights. So Watson Virtual Agent is something which is becoming very popular across BPOs, BTOs, IT industries. Banks are using it in a big way in a lot of developed economies and so on, right? So which essentially kind of helps them, really intelligently on real-time basis gather data from the information that you've collected at the data layer, enriched it with information that you gathered on the augmented intelligence layer through intelligent insights, and you feed it to the virtual agent, and the virtual agent essentially responds on behalf, doing both the job of a support specialist and at the same time do the job of going ahead and even promoting some of the key products, promote features, etc. What we will talk about is something which IBM and SAP have come together is essentially to kind of bring SAP HANA on the cloud, which is the next age of SAP applications, allowing a lot of in-memory processing to happen on a HANA-enabled database. And this is completely cloud-ready. Right. There are two routes to market that we have for SAP on cloud. You could buy directly from IBM. You could call IBM a face-to-face cloud sales reps to come and talk to you about SAP HANA on IBM Cloud. And you could alternately also ask your SAP representative to say, I need SAP HEC as in HANA Enterprise Cloud, right? So that's something which I really want to talk to you about. And this introduces you to have the ability to do more with less budget, right? And this is exactly what we offer from IBM when we say SAP application on the cloud. It's a complete managed cloud, right? And we provide you the SAP applications on IBM Cloud as a managed service all the way up to the basis level. So there is an application level availability that we go ahead and deliver to you. All that you probably need, which is again very specific to every single enterprise, is just take care of the functional layer which you see right on the top, which is essentially about ABAP and business application. There are cases where clients are saying, I probably do not need all of the managed SAP, all the way up to basis. I will be in a position to handle my database and middleware given some regulatory requirements and so on. So we also offer for SAP on IBM Cloud an ability to manage agile SAP all the way up to the operating system. Finally, a lot of our business partners said, hey, what is in it for us? So what we've started to build is we've now certified a huge number of IaaS, which is IBM Cloud Infrastructure as a Service. We've certified that to support SAP, and that is essentially being consumed by IBM business partners to deliver differentiated managed service to their customers. So some customers also buy it directly. At the same time, it is also available for our business partners to extend a managed SAP service on IBM Cloud. The differentiated value is we announced as part of VMworld, which was held in Las Vegas about a month back, the support for virtualization, which means you could take a SAP HANA bare metal or appliance, as you would commonly know in the market from most providers. It's available on the cloud, provisioned within a matter of 4 to 6 hours from your ordering, and you could essentially run a virtualization layer on top of it and run maybe your development, your QA, and your pre-prod on a single bare metal virtualized HANA using VMware. And or you can also have a full-blown IaaS HANA setup running your complete production. And we offer HANA ranging from very basic, small size HANA databases supporting all the way up to 8 terabytes. The next slide essentially is largely about the various offerings that we provide for SAP. We are working closely to start making something similar around the Oracle application as well. So you will hear more about it in upcoming webinars. Look at how Honda essentially is leveraging this capability. Honda essentially extends their SAP landscape with a hybrid cloud environment onto the IBM cloud platform and has significantly benefited out of embracing HANA from their on-premises ECC platform, and now they are able to deliver significantly high-value business insights by use of HANA, and at the same time, we are able to integrate SAP HANA with traditional, applications and data, having brought the entire SAP onto the IBM cloud. So now it enables Honda to go ahead and get meaningful insights out of systems which they run internally, which are owned by them, and at the same time is also harnessing data which exists about Honda in the public internet. Next comes the element of customer experience, and this is something which is very interesting, right? Customer experience is essentially about helping increase the loyalty, helping the customer start feeling empowered, right? An element of self-service is something which is, is something which is being embraced big time by a majority of the millennials, as I would say, right? And which are actually the most, net savvy and are the ones which essentially use a lot of the digital platform, and that's where the growing demand essentially is coming from, right? So what we'll talk about is another use case where we've kind of enabled another customer very near you using Watson virtual agents, which is enabled by conversation, speech, natural language, understanding, tonal analyzer, personality intelligence, a huge amount of them, all of them supported on a Bluemix platform, Bluemix cloud platform delivered by IBM. Right, and what we essentially and the offering which essentially that, if I may want to kind of talk a few minutes about, is about Bluemix PaaS, platform as a service, which delivers a complete e-commerce plugin capability, absolutely secure, and provides a ready-to-use, composable mobile application development platform, right? And completely supported through cognitive APIs on IBM Bluemix. You can reach there by going to www.ibmbluemix.net. This is the customer that I was really talking about, right? Aditya Birla Fashion is essentially capturing a lot of millennial attention, right? What Aditya Birla Fashion essentially does is it allows millennials to actually talk, have conversations, understand their needs and demands. It essentially opens up fashion for the millennials, right? And based on the conversation, there is a personalization feature which is introduced, and that is a massive differentiator for them, and they've seen huge, improvements or huge rise in demands, and therefore driving significantly high amount of revenue. And this is where digital actually touches business in a very, very big way, right? And then the next element essentially is how do you kind of conduct and perform all the digital transformation that we just about talked about, on an agile cloud in a safe and secure manner, right? And that's largely about how do you provide new business models, though in a very trustworthy way, right? So the trustworthy element essentially is ensured by Watson cybersecurity and through blockchain enabled on IBM Bluemix, right? So you get a single platform to get onto, you get a single architecture to kind of decide upon, and then you don't need to worry about it. Now, that doesn't mean we lock you down onto a single cloud platform. You could still operate out of multi-cloud platforms, which rightly, as Anil pointed out, is essential and is also something which is a reality, right? There are out-of-the-shelf SaaS products which are available through specific cloud providers, and today's reality is about a multi-cloud capability, and IBM provides you the multi-cloud capability at a platform level as the leading hybrid cloud provider in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. Next comes the question about blockchain. This is something which I really want to talk to you all about. Blockchain in IBM is essentially built on open source technology, essentially an extension of the Linux Hyperledger fabric. And we provide what is called a fabric composer. The fabric composer essentially goes ahead and allows multiple parties working together to deliver a product or service to an end user in an absolutely secure, trustworthy manner, though not needing one person or one entity to be, belittled or in control, right? So Hyperledger essentially allows all parties to have equal control on the entire transaction system, and every single transaction is posted. And every single transaction is something that is transparently visible to all other parties who are part of the blockchain. Therefore, there is no question of, a issue or a problem raised saying, we did not post this transaction, or that product piece did not come from us, kind of a thing. So because all the data, all transaction aspects or elements are completely transparently logged, it provides a very high level of trustworthiness and therefore eliminates any form of dispute. What we provide on the cloud is complete hosting and support, and the support essentially is about making a very high-speed business network across blockchain, right, across all parties in a blockchain network. That is something which is absolutely critical. We enable Docker containers and container-based services, and we provide Bluemix-based API services to support blockchain as a feature on the IBM cloud. And then a majority of the customers that we have kind of really talked about said, I'm not a financial company, so how does blockchain make sense to me? And, it's a myth that blockchain is something which is specific to financial sector alone. It is available almost to every single possible enterprise that deals with supply chain, that deals with various form of products, any form of a B2B, even a B2C interaction is something that can be part of blockchain. So what we do offer is we provide garage services as a consulting. So our approach to kind of talk to you about blockchain is primarily consultative. and we kind of run workshops with you, and engage with you on trying to bring out the value of introducing blockchain in your organization so that you can essentially go ahead and use blockchain as a serious technology to conduct business that is absolutely safe and secure and is enterprise ready. Number of blockchain customers that we have, and this list is primarily growing. The most beautiful use case that I've come across is the Everledger use case, which essentially tracks diamond, cut or uncut diamond, from mine to the consumer all the way to make sure that there is traceability and there is provenance of the diamond that is created from which mine, from which location, how many carats, all the detail is primarily available. So the consumer feels completely safe and secure in therefore accepting and saying, I like the kind of, transparency and the kind of quality which is promised and the price, so they know what they are getting for the price that they pay. And there is complete traceability back because it's completely enabled by blockchain. There is complete traceability down to every single aspect of diamond creation here. Brings an end to my presentation. I will hand it back to you, Anil.
Yes, thank you, Dharni, for that wonderful presentation and insights on how some of the IBM's offering and some of the case studies also. Very interesting. And it's now time for the Q&A, and I've already received a couple of questions on chat, so I will just go ahead and ask them. So somebody is wanting to know the impact of these digital technologies and digital that we're talking about in retail banking and lending. So it's an industry-specific question. So you would like to take that up, Dharni?
Yeah, sure. Sure, definitely. I mean, banking is probably one of the earliest adopters of technology. I mean, this is my personal belief. And also out of the kind of work which we are doing with bankers across the globe, bankers are early adopters of technology, and they are really kind of moving fast, right? Now, amongst the stuff that I talked about today, bankers are really using cloud to do risk analysis, right? Which means they run risk analysis, they run anti-money laundering, they are able to kind of, burst into cloud, do their risk analysis, which is typically very seasonal or very, short-lived in terms of time, and at the same time, speed, right? What risk analysis for millions of customers earlier would probably take several days together with on-premises infrastructure now gets done in matter of days, right? Not even days, day, I would say. So to that extent, hour on the IBM cloud. So that is something which bankers are doing. Bankers are using agile infrastructure on the cloud through high-performance computing. Bankers are using Watson virtual agents. Bankers are using cognitive capabilities to drive insights into trying to predict assets which are moving from well-performing assets into non-performing assets. So there is predictability which is moving in, and therefore, even before an asset moves from does a state change from a performing to a non-performing asset, there is meaningful action that can essentially get taken, either in the form of a refined offer or in the form of follow-ups to kind of make sure that NPA is curtailed and is minimal. anti-money laundering is something which is very serious. So a lot of central bankers essentially use our cloud technology to go ahead and perform anti-money laundering analysis as well.
Okay.
So that's largely in the banking segment. I can keep going on. But yeah, I mean, come to think about it, a bank has a payment gateway. Then there is an e-commerce, and all these transactions are happening on the web, right? So there are e-commerce, websites. They suddenly go ahead and launch a Black Friday promotion, okay? Now, that is in no way related to the bank, correct? But the banks were primarily running those payment gateways on premises with a certain predicted amount of capacity on the payment gateway. Now, because of the Black Friday, suddenly all the payment transactions shot up and the payment gateway crashed.
Okay.
Right? Had it been on cloud, you could have enhanced or immediately had the ability through hybrid cloud, using IBM technology, you could burst out to the hybrid cloud and provide capability as you start seeing transactions shoot up on your payment gateways, right? And that allows you to kind of retain the customers, so your customers who are actually banking with you and at the same time banking with the e-commerce providers still have a meaningful and a great, experience having used your product, right?
Okay.
But if the payment gateway goes down, the person who's banking with you gets a very lousy response because the much wanted product at that point in time for the given promotion, they could not avail, right? So that leads to loss of face and loss of brand equity as well. So these are all various aspects in which banks are really getting completely changed from a digitization perspective. Mobile banking is something I think has become a norm. If a bank doesn't have a mobile banking capability enabling consumers to perform their transactions as and when they are in a safe and secure manner, I think very few customers would stick to the same bank.
Mm-hmm. No, I think thanks for sharing that. In fact, this also answers one of the other questions that came later about how can digital transformation be sustained long-term for banks. So I think you've answered some of the question using, mobile apps, using, cloud for the payment gateway actually helps. But another related question is that, what if somebody's offering a solution for banks, like for example, a loan management application for banks, and wants to be able to, use the cloud to attract, banking customers. So, is there something that can help them do that? I mean, is there something related to ECM also? I mean, what are the solutions available to do that?
Oh, absolutely, definitely, right. On the IBM cloud, we do look forward to a lot of ISVs who really want to kind of bring their applications. The best part of cloud capability is the ability to fail fast, which means you try, if it doesn't work, you haven't lost much. So you can try a new idea, you can try a new experiment. And the cost of failure is not much. The cost of failure is very minimal, right? So that is something which is therefore very attractive to a lot of developers, a lot of fintechs, and a lot of ISVs, definitely. So yes, we definitely look forward to a lot of ISVs to come and work with us. Please reach out to your nearest, IBM, customer rep, or drop a note to any one of us. We will kind of help you get what you need.
Okay.
In terms of enterprise content management, we've recently enabled two big capabilities, which is video services on IBM Cloud, right? Powered by Clearleap and Ustream. So these two products essentially work together to deliver enterprise-grade content management and content delivery to the end users in a very seriously, secure manner.
Okay. But by the way, where does IBM host its cloud server? Is it does IBM have it in India or is it outside India? Because as far as financial services are concerned, I think regulations are there where they cannot store the data on the cloud if it's outside of India.
So we have a cloud data center in Chennai. Okay. That is one of our pods. We have about 80 data centers across the globe. So one of the data centers is in Chennai, so we definitely are in a position to provide uniquely on IBM Cloud an ability to store data in the Chennai data center. So you will have visibility and control on which systems you are actually hosting your applications and which systems, which storage elements are actually keeping the data and in which data center as well.
Okay. So that was about the cloud and I think question from the banking, which is I think in the more advanced stages of digital. But I've got an exactly question which is from the other side of things where companies are saying that if we're at a very nascent level of digital, so how do we really go about using all this? Because we talked about infra networks. I mean, you talked about blockchain. The point is that if somebody's at a nascent stage, how can they actually drive digital?
Excellent question. And believe me, this is something which I come across Asia Pacific, irrespective of the country, right? I mean, there are large corporates in Australia who keep asking me this question, and I see the adoption kind of getting increasingly high in India as well. There are customers in US who kind of come back with this, and it's absolutely right? I mean, in almost all the cases, you really want to have a partner who can help you go through this journey. So we begin by analyzing the data, right? So what we do is we do as part of our engagement what is called a data first workshop with the customers. So essentially looking at what data is being produced where, what is the core business problem that we are all trying to solve together. Is it a new business launch or is it an eroding revenue which needs to get recovered, or there is onslaught of competition through the digital wave? We're able to kind of do most of them. So we begin with what is called a digital first workshop. We follow it through analysis of data and find the presentations and present the findings of the data first workshop. We look at the organization from a 360-degree view, financial, technical, organization maturity, culture, and we do provide feedback on that. And once the data first workshop gets done and the findings are presented, then there is a joint design thinking workshop which essentially leads to the aspects of digital transformation and what phases and how to go about it in a risk-free manner. So that is something which is done. A lot of it leads to an end state which is primarily cloud native, right? And where we can ingest value through cognitive insights. And at the same time, we kind of help customers saying, let's kind of take this journey. So it is a journey. So digital transformation is not something which is available at the turn of a switch,
it's
right?
Not
so
like a big bang ERP.
So, correct. So we walk the journey with the customer, and it starts with a workshop. So right stakeholders from the client side are also very important. I mean, from when we engage with our clients, I mean, right stakeholders are very important, right? The typical data first workshop will probably need the CIO and most of their CIO office to be available. People who deal with information, right? Sometimes the line of business leaders also participate because they give us a perspective, or the CMO or the chief marketing officer or the product officers come back to us and they engage us as well as part of the data first, who tell us what is the information or data that is available or that they typically look for from outside the IT world, right? I mean, the CIO gives us information about their organization. The marketing line or the lines of business give us a view, give us an external view perspective. So that's how the whole thing happens, and then it becomes a very collaborative thing. Over a period of 2 to 3 weeks, we typically develop jointly a plan, which we then further with proposals and so on. So typically in about month and a half, we are able to kind of come out with a clear value plan in terms of how do we want to get where we want to get to from a digital transformation perspective, and what are the values they deliver as well.
Right. Thanks. I think that answers the question quite comprehensively. The fact that you do take them through a workshop and help them assess the digital maturity level that they're at, and then actually tackle the entire solution and the journey once that assessment has been done. So I think that's the right approach, and for a lot of organizations, I think, who are at a nascent stage, it's important, for them to actually go through such a workshop and, have an assessment, realistic assessment done of where they stand, and then take it forward from there. Absolutely, I think well answered. There's another question about, do you have an example of using AI in blockchain? Is there an example
ask the question again. Example of using
artificial intelligence in blockchain. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are cases where we have dealt with artificial intelligence and blockchain, but artificial intelligence then picks up data based on your copy of Hyperledger and essentially enhances that data, right? Which comes back to, say, if you have, say, let me take an example. Say if you are in a supply chain, right, and you're dealing with, 20 providers who are the next value providers in your supply chain, right? You're able to very distinctly point out based on the Hyperledger implementation without any element of doubt or problem on where does the quality of a particular product or a particular service get stacked, right? I'm just talking about an example that we did with a large manufacturing company, right? Where they are able to very clearly draw meaningful insight out of several million products that they essentially churn out on an everyday basis. 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 such cases kind of come back to them as serious, complaints from their end users. Now, trying to kind of pull out data out of this huge volume of information, and where in the supply chain is it broken, right? Where is the cause of quality failure happening? That's one. And the second thing, it doesn't stop there. The advantage of AI being plugged into the Hyperledger is it not only points out where the cause of problem lies, but it is also able to suggest to you remediation needed. So it's not that you actually landed up pointing a finger to your supplier. In one sense, the supplier is your business partner, right? So you're not finger pointing the business partner, but you're then adding value back to the business partner and saying, hey, do you want to see how you want to make better your product or service so the end user gets a better experience? So that's something which you looked at as well, yes.
Okay. No, I think that's a good example. In fact, I also want to share a quick example. I think there was an experiment of using blockchain on supply chain, in a manufacturing, in a large retailer in the U.S., where they were dealing with, food delivery of food, I think. That's what they were, tracking the supply chain for. They used blockchain to do that. And they were actually dealing with hundreds of suppliers and people involved in this entire delivery of food. And using blockchain, they were actually able to pinpoint and track the food, in just a matter of a few minutes. And that actually helped them reduce the time it took for the food to reach the retail stores, and as a result ended up reducing the amount of food that gets spoiled because of delays in the delivery. So I just wanted to add that as a, something that I have read about blockchain. It is a very powerful mechanism that is actually being used. So thanks. I think all the questions on chat are over. I'll request the host to tell me if there's anybody asking a question on the audio bridge. So if somebody is there, maybe you can connect them now.
Certainly, sir.
Yeah.
Participants, may I request you to please press 01 if you have any questions. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, you may please press 0 and 1.
It doesn't look like anybody's there on the audio bridge to ask question, but yes, in the meantime, I have received one more question on chat, which I'll go ahead and ask Dharni. So, how does IBM, support organizations to uncover new revenue streams and reach new markets using innovative business models? Because I think digital is all about using innovative business models, and now somebody wants to know how can they actually tap. How can IBM help them uncover this?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Thank you for whoever asked that question. So the advantage which IBM brings to the table is two-pronged. One, the fact that we are present and working with several million global enterprises. So that's something which is one ability for us to kind of harvest the work which we've done and the discoveries we've had as part of our engagements. We are able to kind of enhance it as part of our products and services. So typically, as I said, when we do those workshops, we are able to also bring insights into what industry parallels are doing in that particular segment, if not necessarily in that geography, in that particular country, but how they are performing in other countries who have very similar culture characteristics as well. So that is one big benefit which IBM brings to the table. The second big advantage which IBM brings to the table is we are not just a technology provider, right? I mean, we pioneer in building the best of technology, be it cloud, be it software, be it enabling all forms of integration. We back it up with a solid consulting and also technology services behind it. So it's not about just selling hope, but it is also about making that hope come to reality when you're dealing with IBM.
Okay. Great. I think that's a good question and, very well answered that you use, the global support and you look at examples of similar companies abroad to, to help companies uncover new business models as how somebody else has done it. So that I think always helps the company.
Yeah.
So I think with that we come to the end of the webinar today. I see we didn't get any question on the audio bridge, but I think the kind of questions we've received on chat have been pretty good and people have really asked us a lot of good questions today. I'd like to thank all the audience for attending, taking out time to attend and asking us all those wonderful questions. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dharni, for answering all those questions. I hope the audience found them useful and, of course, for your presentation. Do feel free to ask us any questions. If you have any after this as well, we'd be happy to help you, get them answered or answer them ourselves, whichever is applicable. So thank you once again for being a wonderful audience, and we'll see you again till the next webinar. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks,
Thank you
Anil.
very much.
Okay.
Ladies and
I would
gentlemen,
just,
on behalf...
yeah, one
Please go
second.
ahead.
I'd just like to say that once this webinar is over, there's going to be a feedback form that will pop up. I would request all the people to please fill up that feedback form and submit it to us so that we can improve our future webinars. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Good day.
Thank you, speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of IBM and CMR, I'd like to thank you for your participation. We hope it has been a useful time spent with us. Thank you.